text, Professions for Women. Now, when you hear that title, you might totally expect a dry, historical timeline of job market statistics. But instead, what the source material reveals is a narrative that reads way more like a psychological thriller. We're going to uncover the severe, invisible barriers that were literally hiding in plain sight behind what seemed to be a highly accessible career path. We'll explore how gaining professional freedom wasn't just about breaking down external material walls, but engaging in this intense, violent internal battle with the ghosts of social expectation.
Okay, let's dive into this by holding one specific question in our minds. What happens when the greatest threat to your career isn't some external obstacle, like a lack of money or a lack of education, but an actual phantom living inside your own mind? It's a pretty chilling thought, isn't it? Our speaker in the source material presents this incredibly ironic and totally unexpected psychological battle. We so often assume that historical professional struggles were purely about just getting a foot in the door. But as you'll see, sometimes the door is wide open and the monster is already sitting inside the room with you.
So to really understand this battle, we have to look at how this specific career even started. The speaker characterizes literature as an accidental profession. And why is that? Well, historically, literature was one of the absolute easiest professions for women to enter. Unlike the visual arts or the sciences, it didn't demand expensive equipment, didn't require extensive travel or some formal institutional education. All you literally needed was cheap paper and a pen. Plus, as the text points out, it was seen as this reputable and harmless occupation that didn't disrupt the family peace. And absolutely crucial to this, the speaker acknowledges a huge debt to female predecessors. Writers who came before, famous ones like Jane Austen and Aphra Behn, and so many forgotten ones, had already smoothed the path. The physical, material obstacles had largely been cleared away.
The speaker goes on to recount her own start in this profession, and she does it with this deliberate, almost trivializing simplicity. She was literally just a girl in her bedroom writing reviews, slipping a manuscript into a mailbox. And when that very first paycheck arrived from an editor, she didn't buy bread, she didn't use it to pay rent. Nope, she bought a Persian cat. So the key takeaway here is that this is a deliberate parody of the whole struggling artist trope. She is actively distinguishing her experience from women who worked out of sheer, dire economic necessity. She had a real level of privilege. She faced no overwhelming material hardship. But, as we're about to see, the absence of an external struggle really just made room for a much darker internal one.
Section 1. The Angel in the House, a Phantom Antagonist.
So, while the road was clear of material roadblocks, a terrifying internal obstacle was just lying in wait. The speaker names her the Angel in the House. Now, this wasn't a literal ghost, obviously, but the manifestation of the idealized Victorian feminine standard. According to the text, this angel was immensely sympathetic, incredibly charming, utterly unselfish, and pure. But the most dangerous part? She completely lacked a mind of her own. Her entire existence was basically designed to flatter and appease men, and this phantom actively interfered with the writing process. When the author sat down to write a simple book review, the angel would glide into the room and whisper in her ear. She would tell the writer to be deceptive, to be tender, to use all the arts and wiles of her sex, and above all, to never ever let anyone know she had a mind of her own. Basically, to listen to the angel meant writing dishonesty.
The interference was so severe that the writer realized she was in a genuine fight for her professional life. The source text states that if she hadn't fought back, the angel would have plucked the heart out of her writing. I absolutely love how intensely this is framed. The creative process wasn't just, putting words on paper. It actually required a violent act of self-defense. The speaker explains that she literally had to kill this angel to survive as a writer. She had to strangle the phantom of societal expectation before it could completely destroy her honesty. And she points out that this wasn't just some weird personal quirk. Killing the angel was a fundamental universal requirement. It was a necessary part of the occupation of a woman writer during that era.
Section 2. The Unspoken Truth. Creativity versus convention.
All right, so the angel is dead and the writer has successfully defended her honesty, but what happens next? Well, she faces a major identity crisis. Moving beyond just simple book reviewing to discover the profound delight of actual storytelling, she became a novelist. And this brilliantly illustrates the mindset required for that next level of creativity. The source notes describe how a novelist has to cultivate a very specific state of mind to work freely. It's described as this trance-like, unconscious and regular state, a perpetual lethargy. Think of it almost like a lantern casting light deep into the shadows. You have to let the shy, elusive spirit of imagination sweep completely unchecked through the unconscious mind just to find the actual truth of a story.
But, oh boy, here is where the second immense barrier suddenly appears, just as the female imagination is sweeping through that unconscious realm, exploring deep, unspoken truths about human passions and the physical body, it experiences a violent interruption. The text describes it as the imagination literally dashing against the hard rock of social convention. The creative trance is instantly shattered. Why? Because the writer suddenly wakes up to the harsh realization of exactly how society is going to react to what she is uncovering.
Let's look at how this builds into a glaring systemic double standard. The specific obstacle shattering that trance is the knowledge that men would be absolutely shocked by a woman writing truthfully about female passion. The source text highlights the extreme hypocrisy here. Men are allowed great freedom in expression. They can write about their passions, their bodies, their truths without a single second thought. But women, they are severely condemned for attempting the exact same level of honesty. The extreme conventionality of the other sex creates this massive, insurmountable wall that blocks the female writer from fully exploring her own human experience on the page.
So, if we take a step back, we can really look at this journey as an arc of two massive battles. First, there's the slain phantom, the successful killing of the angel in the house. This was the victory over the intense pressure to be constantly self-sacrificing, pleasing, and purely decorative. But the second battle, that's the unspoken truth. The attempt to tell the authentic truth about personal experience and the female body. And according to the lecture notes, this second struggle remains entirely unsolved due to those crippling social restraints we just talked about. The writer won the battle for her mind, for sure, but the battle to express her physical reality, that hit a total dead end.
Section 3. Navigating New Freedoms.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this historical perspective maps onto the world today. Notice the stark contrast between what we see on the outside versus what is actually happening on the inside. Outwardly, women have achieved incredible milestones. The text uses those famous metaphors of gaining a room of one's own and 500 pounds a year, representing dedicated professional space and real economic independence. So the outer freedom is there, but the inner barriers, they are still incredibly potent. The lecture explicitly notes that even when professions are widely open, women still struggle with deep psychological obstacles. They're still facing phantoms and prejudices, battling internalized fears, the heavy weight of social judgment, and deeply ingrained traditional beliefs. The physical door is wide open, but the psychological threshold, yeah, that is still heavily guarded.
Which leaves us with this final vital thought. Gaining freedom, actually getting the room, getting the paycheck, is really only the very beginning of the story. The real challenge, as the source beautifully outlines, is deciding how to actually use that freedom. We have the space and the resources now, but what goals will you pursue? What values are you going to choose to live by? As you shape your own new professional and creative spaces, I really challenge you to look closely at your own mind. Have you identified your own inner phantoms? And more importantly, are you ready to fight them? Thanks so much for